Hi everyone! Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm really excited to try out the Ohuhu markers. These alcohol-based markers are known for their vibrant colors and smooth blending capabilities. I'll be sharing my thoughts and tips with you as we color a cute illustration from Stamping Bella. The markers come in a black carrying bag that's perfect for keeping them compact and easy to transport. I also received a beautiful wooden organizer to store the markers horizontally. It's practical and looks great. Before we start coloring, let's swatch the markers to see how the colors look on paper. I always swatch new tools to get a sense of the colors. With markers, this step can be a bit tricky, since the colors can change depending on the paper you use. That's why it's best to swatch them on the same paper you'll be coloring on. For this video, I'll be swatching on the cards Ohuhu provides. This set includes a wide range of vibrant colors, though I do feel like I might miss some light pastel tones. Those lighter shades are super helpful for creating seamless blends from light to dark. The markers have a bullet tip on one end for detail work and a brush nib on the other for larger areas. Ohuhu also offers markers with a chisel tip instead of a bullet tip. The chisel tip is especially useful for covering large backgrounds. I have this Stamping Bella stamp and I've already stamped the design onto my paper. So I've colored this design before using colored pencils with this image as a reference. And today we'll see how it looks with alcohol markers. If you're not familiar with stamps like this, let me quickly explain. I use a clear acrylic block to mount the stamp. Then I apply ink to the stamp and press it onto the paper. It's that simple. Before I start coloring, I'm going to use a blending sheet to test the color combinations I've picked. Finding the right blend takes a bit of experimenting, so I'll try a few options to see what works best. Since we want the dress to be blue, all the blends I'm testing are blue, but I'm specifically checking if the 4 colors I've chosen blend smoothly together. Most of the time, I test 3 shades of blue together with 1 additional blue. Then for the next blend, I keep the same 3 base blues, but swap out the 4th color for a different in-between shade. Sometimes just changing that one color can make a big difference in how well everything blends. I hope that makes sense. As I test the colors, I'm really impressed with how well these markers layer and transition. I think I like this blend better than the previous one I tried. Testing blends like this really helped me figure out the best combination. Okay, I've settled on a blend I'm happy with. Now let's move on to the actual illustration. Now that I've chosen my blue blend, I'm going to start coloring the dress. With my lightest color, I'm going to define where the creases and folds in the dress will be. There's one here, another one there, and one more here. It doesn't need to be 100% perfect. I'm just using this reference as a guideline, not a strict rule. Once I've mapped out where the folds will be, I feel more confident going in with my darkest color. When using your darkest shade, keep the strokes short and precise. It helps to hold your marker more vertically so that only the tip touches the paper. I know it's not always easy, but give it a try. I'm also making little triangle shapes at the base of the dark areas to emphasize the folds. At this stage, I'm not really looking at my reference anymore. I'm just going with the flow. These darker strokes are much smaller than the lighter ones I made earlier, because I'll use my second color to extend them. This will soften the edges and start blending everything together. Again, I'm using just the tip of the marker to carefully stretch the shadows outward. Next, I'll grab the third color and repeat the process, extending the blend a bit further each time. I have to say, I love the sound these markers make on the paper. It's that satisfying, scratchy noise, and it's one of my favorite things about using markers. For the final step, I'll take my lightest blue and go over all the colors to blend them together smoothly. I'll leave a few small white gaps here and there to act as highlights where the light hits the fabric. Once you have something like this, you can repeat the whole process to add more depth and refine the shadows. The markers blend beautifully. With the second layer, the transitions look smoother, and the colors become a bit more vibrant and darker, creating a richer blend. Here's a quick comparison of how the dress looks when colored with pencils versus these markers. Now for the shadow under the skirt, I'm starting with my lightest blue. Then I'll use my second lightest blue to add depth. If you keep your markers wet on the paper, they blend together seamlessly, like this. Now we can move on to the top of the dress. As before, I'm starting with my lightest color to map out where the shadows will go. Once I'm happy with that, I'll go in with my darkest color. Remember, this is the darkest shade, so keep your strokes small and controlled. Just use the tip of the marker. Don't go overboard, as we still have 3 other blues to blend and build depth with. Then I'll repeat the whole process for a second layer. Adding a second layer really intensifies the colors and makes the shadows pop even more. And there you have it, the dress is finished. For the ribbon on her dress here, I'm going to use R22 and R4. Now I'm going to wait until the first layer is completely dry, because in such a small space, the colors can bleed into each other too much if I don't. I want to create defined lines to imitate the little folds or details, so letting it dry is important. Once it's dry, I'll go in with the bullet tip. This is perfect for small areas like this. I'm keeping it to just 1 layer since it's such a small section. If I blend too much, it will all mix together and lose the definition I want. Now with those same 2 colors, I'm going to color the shoes as well, using the bullet tip. By the way, these markers come with both bullet tips and chisel tips. It really depends on how you color and the size of the area you're working on. The chisel tip is fantastic for larger areas like backgrounds, while the bullet tip, as you can see, is perfect for small details like this. I'm taking full advantage of the bullet tip for this drawing, as I received markers with bullet tips plus brushed nibs. For the skin tone, I'm going to use 3 colors. Since the face is so small, I won't map out the shadows with my lightest color this time. Instead, I'll go straight in with my darkest shade, as I already know where the shadows will be. There will be shadows under the hair, along the right side of the face, and beneath the collarbone and chin. Moving on to the arms, I'll focus on the shadows here on this side and underneath. After adding these colors, I feel like the shadows could use more depth. My darkest shade at the moment is YR4, but I think BR3 might add just the right amount of contrast. Let me test it out. Okay, this works well. I'll be careful not to overdo it though, since it's already pretty dark. I'll also add a bit more shadow to the neck to enhance the depth. Now for some blush, I'll use a pinkish tone to bring some life to the face. To soften the transition between the blush and the skin tone, I'll blend it out with a lighter pink. It's a bit tricky because one color feels too dark and the other too light, but I'm gently fading the blush until it looks balanced. Finally, I'll work on the legs, using the same approach, focusing on the shadows and blending everything smoothly. For the hair, I'm going to use a Y3, Y6, a YR2 and YR1. Since the area is so small, I'll start with my darkest color, YR3, to define the shadows. I'll add the darkest tone here and just below the crown. To create texture, I'll use some small flicking motions. Next, I'll move on to my second darkest color, Y6, and extend those flicks further out, softening the transition. Then, with my lightest color, Y1, I'll fill in the lightest parts of the hair, leaving small white gaps to represent where the sunlight hits the strands. Blonde hair with sunlight often gives this almost white highlight effect, so I want to make sure I keep that in mind. Now I'm going to repeat this whole process as I feel the hair still lacks depth. When you blend darker colors with lighter ones, the darker tones naturally soften, which is great for blending but can reduce the contrast. To add more depth, I'll go over the shadows again, just like I did for the dress and skin. I find it helps to repeat the process at least twice, sometimes 3 times, to make the shadows really pop. Overall, I'm really impressed with these markers and would recommend them to anyone who is looking to expand their coloring supplies. They're incredibly versatile. You can use them as a base layer and enhance them with colored pencils, or simply use them on their own for vibrant results. Things I like about these markers are their vibrant, highly pigmented colors, smooth blending and layering, dual tips for versatility. I have the bullet tip plus brush nib, but there's also a chisel tip version that's perfect for backgrounds. It's faster than colored pencils, making them great for quick coloring and reducing hand fatigue since you don't need to apply pressure. Things to keep in mind: the alcohol smell may be strong for some people. I didn't have any issues with it though. Alcohol-based markers are not suitable for coloring books printed on double-sided pages due to bleed-through. And the 120 set could benefit from more lighter pastel shades, in my opinion. Do you own the Ohuhu markers? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Next, I'm using the 2 pinks we've used before to color the crown. Since the crown has a round shape, I'm adding darker shadows to both the left and right side, leaving the center white. This creates the illusion of a rounded, cylinder-like shape. Since this is a small area, I'm keeping it simple with just 2 colors for the blend. I hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Happy coloring! Bye!